Thank you for that warm introduction. Thank you, Adrian. Your Excellency, fellow Londoners, it's a real honour to be here today, along with the Chief Rabbi, Francis, Rushnara, and Ruth. And can I just say this? I know it's 80 years on, but for the avoidance of doubt, I do not condone the bribing of Met Police officers. It's great to help mark the 80th anniversary of the Battle of Cable Street, a truly historic occasion. There are many, many friends here tonight. I'm not going to go through and name all of them, but there are a few parliamentarians who I do need to mention. It's great to see John Mann here today. It's good to see Dawn Butler, Stephen Timms, Meg Hillier here today as well. And the Mayor of Hamlets, John Biggs, is here as well. It's good to see John here. But also somebody who's worked incredibly hard to deal with some of the challenges that Ruth touched upon. Baroness General is here today as well. Now, look, I love you all. But it's particularly pleasing to see 3 or 4 generations of Londoners here today. I've met children, their parents, their grandparents, and their great-grandparents. It's great that you are here today as well. As we've heard, back on the 4th of October 1936, not far from this great hall where we gather today, thousands of brave, and they were brave, and courageous men, women, and children gathered to oppose fascism. What they achieved by united and pulling together has had a lasting impact that continues to this day. Sadly, only a small number of these heroes are still alive to pass on their memories, which makes it all the more important we continue to mark this event. And we continue to learn the lessons of history which remain so relevant to us today. To truly appreciate what happened in the Battle of Cable Street, it's important to remember the context of the time. Across Europe, the Nazis were gathering strength. In Spain, the civil war with Franco's nationalists was raging on. And here in Britain, Mosley's British Union of Fascists, the BUF, were seeking to emulate their European counterparts. Their primary aim was to encourage hate, particularly anti-Semitism, amongst working-class Londoners. And the BUF was a growing force in British politics, and Mosley wanted to gain further support from Londoners here in the East End. The Jewish community was blamed for the ongoing economic problems as a way to whip up racism and division. And with the increasing intimidation of the Jewish population, the similarities were painfully clear between the methods of Mosley's black shirts in London and Hitler's brown shirts in Nazi Germany. So the threat from the fascists was very real at the time, and the plan to march thousands of black shirts into the heart of East End was a clear provocation and a statement of intent. But that day, as we know, the fascists failed and were forced into a humiliating retreat, something achieved only through the power of people and communities coming together. Jewish EastEnders, Irish dock workers, trade unionists, Labour Party members, and many, many more. They formed a coalition of people coming together in solidarity to reject fascism and everything associated with it. We can't pretend this brought an end to anti-Semitism in London, something we know all too well, nor that it led to the immediate defeat of the BUF or the demise of Mosley. But it was a significant turning point, a victory that had lasting repercussions, because it showed that fascism could be resisted through communities united across ethnic and cultural divides. And what's vital to remember is that this mass mobilization of so many people was only possible because of the historic social bonds that had been established between the Jewish and Irish immigrant communities in the East End. And this is an important lesson to me today. When fighting the global threat of extremism, we need to come together. Many of those who stood at Gardener's Corner and manned the barricades during the Battle of Cable Street were purely motivated through solidarity with their friends and neighbours. They knew each other, they'd spent time together, and they'd helped each other before. Jewish families, for example, had taken in the hungry children of Irish dock workers during the strike of 1911, something that was never forgotten by the Irish. And this story of solidarity and social integration has inspired many people over the last 80 years and should continue to inspire us now. London today is more diverse than ever before, and on the whole is a shining example of how people from different backgrounds can live side by side. The Chief Rabbi talked about uniformity and unity. We don't simply tolerate each other, but respect and celebrate our backgrounds and differences. But we're far from perfect, and social integration is not keeping pace with the rate of change of our city. The less integrated our society becomes, the greater the economic and social cost we face now and in the future. And this can feed extremism, causing anxiety, the fear of crime, and mistrust between communities. That's why, as Mayor of London, I'm working to encourage greater social integration in our city, to help strengthen London's social fabric and tighten the bonds between Londoners from different backgrounds, and to help encourage people to build connections with their fellow Londoners, just like the Jewish and Irish populations did back in 1936. Because now more than ever, it's important we come together and stand against anyone who seeks to divide us. I mean working together, playing together, studying together, having a shared set of common values and laws that are clear, progressive, and tolerant, and around which communities can unite. This is how we need to move forward in London. Now, I've met a few heroes from Cable Street already. One of those in Cable Street in 1936 was Willie Myers, who I know is here today. He was not yet 15, 2 weeks shy, when he took to the streets in the East End 80 years ago. In a recent interview I read, he spoke powerfully about what happened on that day and how we still have so much more to do to learn the lessons of the past. He said, "When I hear of Muslims or Polish people being attacked today, I feel angry. I cannot fathom why we can't see each other as human beings. If we're cut, we all bleed the same." Willie, I think, I can speak for everyone in this hall today when I say we share your anger. We share your frustration that there's still so much racism and prejudice 80 years on. Depressingly, anti-Semitism has been on the rise again in recent years. And following the EU referendum, as Francis said, we've seen a huge spike in reported hate crime across our country, something that is completely unacceptable. History shows us that discriminating against one group of people in our society can lead us down a slippery slope of ever-increasing prejudice becoming normalised. When we see things that are divisive, go against our British values, and are just fundamentally wrong, we must call them out. And today I'm proud that we stand here as another coalition, politicians, the Jewish community, trade unions, synagogues, anti-racist organisations, local diverse associations, and many others. We form a coalition not only to honour and remember the brave people who fought against fascism in 1936, but to show our commitment and resolve now, 80 years on, to continue that fight. To say we'll never let fascism, racism, or prejudice prevail. To say anyone who threatens our values, whether fascists, extremists, or political forces seeking to divide our society, you will fail. That day back in 1936, as we've heard, the crowd shouted the Spanish Civil War slogan, "No pasaran," they shall not pass, a powerful phrase that still resonates to this day. And this resoluteness, encapsulated in that phrase, "they shall not pass," is something we must continue to put into action as we vow to fight the far right, extremists, and hate crime today. Let me end by saying this. We, the Jewish community, trade unionists, Labour members, and others here today should be proud of what happened in the Battle of Cable Street. Together, we must ensure that this significant moment in British history is never forgotten. We must ensure to learn the lessons of our history and pass them on to the next generation. And in doing so, we must work to encourage greater social integration at the same time as uniting in a common cause to fight hate crime, racism, and fascism wherever we find it today. This is how we best honour those brave men, women, and children who took part in the Battle of Cable Street 80 years ago. Thank you.